Hi everybody. This week's presentation was from my group and we are focusing on sexual health and sexual health education. We have a couple different topics that we're focusing on within this topic. So I will be covering sexual health education right now in the state of Michigan and currently in the United States. We have another group member who's focusing on sexual education with the LGBTQ plus community and where it should progress with that. We have another topic of what Planned Parenthood says about sexual health education. We'll be covering STIs and STDs. And then we will also be covering HIV as well as sexual violence. So we have a lot to cover in our presentation, but we thought that it would be extremely well-rounded if we can cover a lot of topics that we think as public health officials should be focusing on within this specific category, because it is a lot. There's a lot that you should be able to teach, but also that I think is very current and relevant with people who should be learning about it right now. So I'm going to start off with our PowerPoint and talking about that. And we do have a tiny pre-test. It's a true and false questionnaire on slide 2 that we would like you to take. So if you want to pause the video right now and take a couple minutes to do that, the answers will be shown at the very end so that we will not jump into them right away, but kind of put these questions in the back of your head as we're progressing throughout the presentation and how it might change your thoughts. So if you want to pause the video now and take that quiz. Okay, so after taking the quiz, I'm going to dive into the current status of sexual health education starting on slide 3. And it's actually really more relevant information than what I was anticipating was starting my research. But as of March 1st, 2020, 29 states and the District of Columbia require public schools to teach sex education, and 27 of the states mandate sex education and HIV education. So it's not the entire nation, which I thought was very, very interesting. Which I also thought, though, was kind of odd at the same time, because I feel like that's, again, something that everybody should be educated on. So on slide 4, there's a TED Talk video that I would actually like you guys to watch. It is a video basically about the current status of sexual health education and where we should be progressing towards the change of it and the policy changing of it as public health officials. And I would like for you to watch it in its entirety. It's around about 13 minutes, I think, roughly, but if you can pause the video now and watch that. Okay, so I thought that was a really interesting TED Talk. I think she covered a lot of really interesting, relevant information. So now jumping back into the presentation, the PowerPoint at slide 5. This is kind of now talking about like the parent status with regard to sexual health education. So it focuses on like the state definitions of parents' rights concerning sexual health education. And it talks about 25 of the states and the District of Columbia require school districts to notify parents that sexual or HIV education will be provided by the school district, which I thought was very interesting considering, again, smaller amount of states than what I anticipated. 5 states require parental consent before a child can receive instruction, which I also thought was very interesting as well. 39 states and the District of Columbia require students receive instruction about HIV. 22 states require that if provided, sex and or HIV education must be medically, factually, or technically accurate. It makes sense to have all 3 accurate, but that's just my opinion. Try and present this in a non-biased way. State definitions of medically accurate vary from requiring that the Department of Health review curriculum for accuracy to mandating that the curriculum be based on information from published authorities upon which medical professionals rely. So again, I think there's a lot of gaps and parallels to what the policy is with sexual health education. Moving along to slide 6 in the PowerPoint. Now I'm going to focus a little bit more on the sexual health education in the state of Michigan specifically. As you can see on slide 6, if you would like to enlarge the graph, I thought this one was really, really interesting looking at it from like the national perspective and talking about how, funding is a huge problem right now with sexual health education. So definitely recommend that you take a look at that because it's very interesting just based on the states, like what they're allowing. But the superintendent of a school district shall cooperate with the Department of Public Health to provide medically accurate materials for instruction of children about HIV and AIDS. Just in case you were wondering who sets that policy, it's the superintendents of school districts along with the Department of Public Health, just in case you were curious. Sorry, going between a lot of different things right now. But one NCSL article that I pulled up and that I will also be posting along, I think below this video, talks specifically about different facts within this. You can look at different states as like what it varies between like Arizona to Michigan to Colorado to California and things like that. And we are probably one of the more conservative states, I would say. There's a lot of other states who have a lot of information on this, who have very little information on this. There's some who have very detailed plans and protocols, and some that have very broad protocols and plans as well. So I will be including that. I recommend, though, that you pause the video, take a look through that. If you have any questions, more than willing to follow up and answer any of those for you guys. And lastly, what is sexual health education consist of? So I don't know about you guys, but I had as early like as I think it was like 6th and 7th grade of sexual health education. But what it consists of is human development, so knowing the anatomy through puberty and understanding like the progression of female and male bodies with developing reproductive systems. Relationships, so studying healthy relationships, bad relationships, things like that. Personal skills, sexual behavior, sexual health, obviously, and society and culture with regards to sexual health. So understanding like what societal norms and values play in society and culture. The next 2 slides are videos that I would really appreciate you guys to watch. The first one is a little bit interesting, but I know another one of our group members will be covering it, and it's Can You Teach Consent? With regard to like things like sexual violence and things like that, I would really appreciate you guys looking at it, because this is also trying to point out that an abstinence-only education does not work. And some people think that it does, and it really doesn't based on the science. So pause the video now, and you can watch that short video. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, and then the last video I have from me is about adolescent health and the importance of sexual health education. So how important it actually is to teach it. And the reason I put it is that this video is taught from Dr. Chandra Mali Venkutrama. That's a mouthful to say. Who's from the World Health Organization's Department of Reproductive Health and Research. He talks about the importance of meaningful sexuality education for young people and the dividends for society as a whole, how it would impact our health later on, getting early exposure to proper sexual health education. So pause the video now. It's about 6 minutes roughly, so you can pause the video now and you can watch that video. Okay, that is all that you will hear from me. The next topic that we will be moving into in our PowerPoint will be on slide 10, and we will be picking up on sexual health education with the LGBTQ+ community. Bye, everybody.